at 5.
Teams with the Illinois Emergency Management Agency arrive in Winnebago County with one goal: to see if this region can qualify for financial help repairing damage left by July storms. WIFR reporter Adalia Young caught up with team members to see what they're looking for and whether they believe the damage is severe enough.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker can declare Winnebago County a disaster area, which makes state resources available to help with cleanup. But this is a federal request, which the governor must take to President Joe Biden. If we can get that, experts say it opens up a lot more possibilities.
The partnerships between our local, county, state, and federal officials are really important in this process.
As area residents pick up the remnants of July storms, local leaders hope to get more help to the region, specifically through federal relief funds. Representatives of the Illinois Emergency Management Agency spent Tuesday in Winnebago County to assess the damage.
Our teams are going door to door in various neighborhoods and looking at actual structures, seeing if they're livable, if people can live in them. Not only local communities, individual houses, but also private businesses as well, because we're here partnering with the Small Business Administration as well. Some options for them may be finding some low interest loans, some opportunities there for them.
The assessment will be part of the state's request to the federal government as it pursues a disaster declaration. The teams will spend as long as it takes to assess the damage in each county.
So we're asking what sort of resources are already available to help people recover, whether that's through state or local governments, voluntary agencies, non-governmental organizations, or private sector. We're also asking the question about insurance. Are people insured for the damage they sustained? We also want to understand the economic impacts to the community, whether people lost their jobs or businesses were closed. It's really painting that picture of what the impacts were of the event here in Winnebago. We're looking at the broader impact of the event, and that's why we're collecting the story. We're asking people what happened.
If the disaster request is denied, the state of Illinois could appeal and provide more information to federal authorities. The appeal must happen within 30 days.
Thank you, Adalia. The teams encourage people who didn't get their damage assessed to contact local emergency management agency representatives to report that damage.